She's Katy Montgomery. He's Justin Joseph. These best friends are serving subpoenas to bad advice weekly with Wrong Way Forward. Now, here's Katy and Justin.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. This week, we're tackling something that probably has never happened to anyone. I have one very small or parallel experience to this, which Katy and I can talk about. But when we both read this advice column, we were both shocked about it. Katy, you want to kind of give an overview of where we're heading with this?
So we're going to be talking about gardening in the nude. And so someone, and Justin, are you going to be reading that advice column?
Yeah, I'll take it up. Gardening in the nude, like I said, it's probably not happened to a lot of people, but it's shocking that it happened even to this one person. This was in the Oregon Live. I guess it's not surprising that this happened in Oregon, just to start with. But Lizzie writes in, my neighbor really likes to be naked in her backyard. All summer, she does everything she can in the nude. I mean, she gardens naked. She reads naked. She takes work calls naked. Freaked out there. This wouldn't be a problem except that we live on a rise and our backyard looks right down onto hers. That means when she's nude, we feel very awkward in our own backyard. Not to mention that, oh, hey, this is hilarious. Not to mention the fact that my teenage son refuses to go back because he's worried he will spy on a middle-aged naked woman. So first, overall reaction to that, then we'll get into the advice that the columnist gave.
Well, my first reaction reading this is I remember I danced forever when I was young. And I remember at my very first recital, the dance instructor said, if you can see the audience can see you. And so I think before we even get to the advice, I'm like, let's not paint this rosy. Let's not say this is an innocent person doing what she wants to do in her backyard. If you can be seen by someone, you can see them. And so she's full aware of what she's doing. Right.
And she this is that whole voyeuristic thing, which I just do not understand. But there's probably some part of her that's excited. Is that the word? Excited by it?
I mean, I don't think we can necessarily assign her motives, but she clearly likes to be nude. And she clearly likes to, be nude where it is seen. So it could be, excuse me.
Bless you.
I never sneeze once, so.
That's right. It just takes me back to the fly on my forehead issue. So,
exactly.
Things happen.
But she clearly has, either she's just completely comfortable with her body, which good for her. There's very few of us that are. Or, she sees it's that her private property and she can do what she does. But it does ring a little bit of being an exhibitionist.
Yeah, and I'm going to disagree with you on both of those points. I really don't care how she feels about her body. I think it's disgusto. Secondly, what was the other thing? That it's her private property. I mean, there are decency laws that still prevent you from doing things. You can't hang your dick out the front window. You know what I mean? And hang out and wait for people to see you. So this to me is, and I realize that as I get older, I get more prudish, but this to me is just absolutely unacceptable.
Well, and what it reminds me of, and I don't know if I've ever told you this story, Justin, but when you're little, all you want to do is swim. Like it's the biggest deal to swim. And so we were at the beach and there is, clearly the ocean, there's an outdoor pool, but the place where we stay had an indoor pool, which the concept for us was just amazing. There's a pool inside. And so it was after dinner. My dad takes all four of us, we go downstairs, we go in and we walk in, and in the indoor pool are 5 naked old people.
Completely.
Butt ass naked. And the 6th old one is like just sitting on a lounge chair watching the 5 naked people.
Male or female? Or both?
Mixed. And we hear, oh, the kids are here. We better get out of the pool. And I'm thinking to myself, you're damn straight. You better get out of the pool. This is disgusting. And my dad is just a person of decorum. He's not going to confront. And I'm just ready for my dad to be like, get your pants on and get the hell out of here. And instead he looks at me and goes, get in the pool, Katy, get in the pool. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And then what was so amazing is one woman, she did not have an attractive figure. She gets out of the pool, puts on a kitty cat sweatshirt, and then just stands there bottomless. Oh. And I remember being a kid and I'm like, put the bottoms on first and then put on the kitty cat sweatshirt. So all 4 of us are in the pool. I'm the oldest and I'm looking at my siblings and we're kind of fake swimming. And I keep saying, don't put your head in the water because you're going to get tootie water. Don't put your head in the water. You're going to get dick water. I was like so grossed out. My dad didn't say a single thing. Well, we go upstairs and the first thing we see our mom, we're like, there were naked people down in the pool. Well, and guess what? My mom gets all four of us in tow, marches down to the, to the office and complains. And that's also what I found so strange is that this is a mother who's writing in, who's talking about her teenage son. Yeah. I'm surprised at this point she hasn't walked over and said, this is inappropriate for my son and he's highly uncomfortable. Like my mother did for me.
I agree. And what's funny about
pool.
And clearly the woman getting out, the naked woman getting out of the pool is traumatizing for you.
Yeah. And I just, and that's the thing that I think it's becoming a theme here is it's like, be you, fly your freak flag, but you live in a community. And I think the sense of community is being eroded now more than ever, right? But you take care of each other. You're aware of your surroundings. You think how certain things are going to land. I mean, this woman doesn't give a rat's ass.
Right. And speaking of not giving a rat's ass, let's go to the advice, which I just thought was really bad. So the advice, it's funny. And, you and I dabble in the advice columns. We're not this is in your wheelhouse. You're a coach, et cetera. This is not in my wheelhouse, which is funny because people are like, what, you're giving advice? I'm like, I'm not really giving advice. I'm more like just saying what I think is dumb advice. And here's an example of a woman who I don't think should give advice because she's all over the place. She first starts by saying, have your neighbor over and you guys can have tea and and then you can show her what a lovely backyard view you have. And I'm like, well, that's so passive aggressive. And like a woman who gardens in the nude doesn't want to have tea is my guess. She wants a bourbon, but I don't know. But she
might be wanting to go over the line, sweet Jesus, or whatever.
Exactly. Anyway, and if she didn't want to have tea, she'd want to have it in the nude, which is weird. But this is where the advice column centers around. I just think this is the wrong advice. So maybe this is the advice columnist speaking. So maybe just lean in. I'm not saying you go naked, but just accept that this is a funny quirk of hers. It isn't sexual. It's just a body. We all have one. And then when it comes to neighbors, it could be worse. She's gardening naked, not cooking meth or feeding rats. Like, wrong way forward.
Completely wrong way forward. This is not like two wrongs, make a right. And it's the wrong way forward because she's, first of all, not really considering this teenage son who feels highly uncomfortable and needs to be able to enjoy his backyard. And I think this is a conversation that could be had in a very diplomatic and tactful way.
And how would you do it?
I think probably if I were advising someone, I would knock on the door and say, have a few pleasantries and say, listen, I wanted to let you know, I feel a little awkward myself saying this, but we can see you in the backyard nude. And making an assumption, I think you probably enjoy being the nude and it is your home. But I wanted to let you know that my son is very uncomfortable. He's in his kind of awkward puberty age. We're really talking to him about, not objectifying women and how to respect women. And it's really kind of mixed messages. And I'm wondering if we can come to a compromise, and at least start there rather than let's come over for tea and hope you figure out that we can see your boobs and butt all day.
Right. The woman does not care. I mean, clearly.
She doesn't care.
Having her for tea is not going to do the trick.
And I think it's interesting that this person, and the longer you allow something to happen, that much more difficult is it to change. I mean, the first thing that I would say if I was an exhibitionist and a nudist in my backyard, I'd be like, well, I mean, I've been at this every day in the summer, work calls and gardening included. Why are you saying something now?
Right. And then you're officially at odds with your neighbors, which is, we've had that conversation on this podcast before. That's never fun.
Never fun. No.
All right. On the other side, I want to tackle the question because I really have thought about this when looking at this topic. Would it make a difference if this was a young, attractive person? So let's talk about that on the other side. Plus, we're going to tackle another neighborhood issue, a man who's getting divorced, his girlfriend or his former wife lives next door with her husband, what he did to get back at them. We'll take that up on the other side. We'll be right back.
You've been listening to Wrong Way Forward, where bad advice goes to die and then gets resurrected just so we can roast it again.
If you're enjoying the chaos, hit like and subscribe and come back every Thursday for new episodes.
Have a new topic or some disastrously bad advice you want to dissect? Email wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Include your contact info.
Now back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin podcast.
When we left on the other before the break, we were talking about a woman who has a 15-year-old son who watches her neighbor garden, take work calls, etc. in the nude. We both agreed that the advice just to let it happen was not good advice. But the question I posed going into the break was, would it make a difference if this person was an attractive person, a young, hard-bodied man or woman? Would that be better or worse? And I'm like, I kind of want to say, yeah, it's better, and I'd probably be more okay with it, but that's totally the wrong way forward.
I mean, to me, it's the same difference. And particularly if I have a teenage boy, I would want him to leave his bedroom window once in a while. So this would be worse for me as a parent, because I'd be like, why does he always stay inside and look out the window? I mean,
right.
So for me, it would be a more difficult issue because, he would probably be staring 24/7.
Yeah. You remember that Sex and the City episode where Samantha, I think this actually happened in Sex and the City. Oh no, the neighbor was having a lot of sex and Samantha went down to yell at him, and he opened the door, and he was this very attractive man. I think he was in a towel, and the towel drops off, of course, because it's Sex and the City.
Yeah.
But suddenly she's where she was not okay with them having sex. Suddenly she's completely okay with the sex that's going on in the apartment next door because he's attractive.
So here's the thing. You literally chose the most extreme example. Everybody knows Samantha is the sex crazed, over the top, has had multiple partners.
Multiple orgasms as well.
Yes. And way above the average American. So, of course that's her case. I think most people would be like, look, I just don't really want to have somebody naked in their backyard, ruining my experience in my own house. And here's the thing. Even if you are sexy, nobody wants to see you I don't, bending over and all kinds of stuff, gross. I just,
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, I think that we agree it's the wrong way forward. A, to garden in the nude, and B, to tell someone in an advice column that that's okay. We just do not think that's the right way forward. On the subject of being a good neighbor, Katy found this clip, and I thought it was interesting. Katy, you want to set up what we're looking at? Don't give away, of course, the main point of the story, but set up what we're going to see here.
So from what I understand, man and woman married, very acrimonious divorce, really did not land well. And so the husband has a home after the divorce. I think the wife might be getting remarried, moves in next door, and the husband decides to kind of respond in kind with a big FU. So
there you go.
I think you should give it to us, Justin. Yeah.
All right. Here's the news coverage of the incident. This was a big enough incident that made the news coverage. Here's the news coverage, and we'll take it up on the other side.
It's in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, has purchased a home ex-wife and her new boyfriend, and he has erected a giant middle finger for her boyfriend to see every morning when he looks out the window. Now, he claims that
I love this guy.
I know.
I love.
You get the idea. Just to set it up, if you're not watching us on YouTube, and if you are, we'll put this up. But it's a beautiful house, right, Katy? I mean, it looks like $1 million
it's a very
plus.
nice neighborhood. This is a very large statue of a middle finger. It's rather tacky, in my opinion, and it's of a significant size. I mean, it is very visible. It's very prominent in his backyard.
And you can tell he spent a lot of money doing it. I mean, this house is waterfront. It's the news coverage goes on to say the guy, not surprisingly, owns strip clubs, and it obviously does very well. And he obviously spent a lot of money, because the middle finger it's not just made out of, tree branches. It's really well done.
Yeah, it's like stone, right?
Yeah, it looks like stone or wood, but it's got a nice background, a beautiful base. I mean, there was some thought and effort that went into this middle finger.
So I'm gonna go with, I think this is the wrong way forward. And not so much about erecting it. It's like, I think he's not dealing and processing the anger. And so I think it's the wrong way forward, because there is a certain point where this is going to poison him.
Mhm.
And, a lot of times I talk to people about like what's within your locus of control, right? And you're divorced, you can't control what your wife did in the past, you can't control what your wife's going to do in the future, but you can control your reaction to it. And my guess is that, that's unattractive for them to see when they wake up in the morning. But for him, he is still harboring so much intense anger and emotions that my guess is it's having effect on his daily activities, on his health. He's probably constantly in fight or flight. He's not able to fully connect with people and instead sends out a signal of I'm separating, I'm disengaging. And so I think at the long term, he's really, the middle finger is really directed towards him.
Yeah, I think you're right on. I did divorce law when I was making the transition from being a lawyer into television. And so I did some divorce law. Then in my real estate business, I handle divorces. So I see that side of it. I can tell you that I think it's emotionally one of the most difficult things that a person goes through.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a good friend in Denver who's a divorce lawyer, and she's one of the top divorce lawyers. And I actually refer her a lot of business. And I have a good friend who went through divorce, and I can tell you, watching my girlfriend go through the divorce, and the divorce was very acrimonious. She caught him allegedly cheating, etc. And she was angry, and it's taken her a long time to move through that. And I think you're right on. Staring at a middle finger every time you look out your window just as a reminder of that pain, and that can't be the right way forward.
Agreed. I think we're on. Justin, look at this. We're on the same page.
I know. Can you believe it?
No, it's every time it happens, I'm in complete shock.
And those episodes are our lowest rated, probably.
Yeah. And what's going to be really interesting is when we come back after the break, there's quite a few people who think your comments and advice were the wrong way forward. And so we're going to share those, but then we've also got a reader request to get some advice on a sticky situation she's recently been in.
We'll be back after this.
Thanks for streaming Wrong Way Forward, the weekly reminder that advice is usually free for a reason. We call out bad advice wherever it hides: boardrooms, break rooms, and even book clubs.
Enjoying this dumpster fire? Like, subscribe, and check back every Thursday for new episodes. Want us to roast your favorite piece of nonsense? Email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact info. We're not psychic, just judgmental. And now, back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin.
And we're back. So we did get, Justin, a viewer email just to kind of give everybody some background. Justin was at the airport. He was the number one person on the standby list. A person in a wheelchair came, and then Justin got pushed to 2, and this person became 1. And
Okay.
Justin immediately.
Can we just stop there? I mean, I was the number one person on the standby list all day. Flights were being delayed into Denver, and I wanted to get home. But yes, that's
Correct.
sort of where it is.
So I got, we got an email, but it says.
Well, hold on. Let me also set up the fact that, so this person, we need to tell the rest of the story. This person came up, and basically, because they were in a wheelchair, the gate attendant, the customer service person, felt sorry for them and gave them immediate priority. And I had been on the number one priority over 25 people all day. In 3 seconds, I was number 2, and I was maybe not going to get a seat on this full flight. So I called United customer service. They said that shouldn't have happened. And so they gave me a confirmed seat, but several viewers were not happy that did not think it was appropriate that I called.
Well, and
United.
Justin, I think it's interesting that you're still trying to explain your behavior to this. I waited all day. The viewers, the listeners knew all of that context and still thought that it was the wrong way.
Well, one of them thought.
So it says, I am gobsmacked that Justin was mad about a handicapped man getting bumped above him on the standby list. I literally cannot imagine thinking about that or making the phone call to United to complain. Yes, there are rules, but I think customer service reps are within their rights to give preference to a handicapped person.
Oh,
Justin?
Viewer disagree. I mean, I think what we discussed on the podcast, which I think was your point that I think is right on, there are rules in place for a reason so that people whomever you are, wherever you come from, are treated equally. And I got some viewer emails on the other side of that too. Like, here's when I work in HR and I'm tired of people conflating empathy with exceptions. You weren't questioning the wheelchair's users' right to fly. You were questioning why customer service took shortcuts. United staff made assumptions, and I think that's right, instead of following protocol. And I think that that was my point. I don't care who would have walked up to the gate, if whether they were in a wheelchair or not. I knew that the customer service person had made a shortcut, and that upset me.
Here's one more. It says, I could not disagree more with Justin's advice to tell Tacky Man. Tacky Man was the person who was not helping us as we were unloading quite a bit of boxes. And I just labeled him Tacky Man. Could not disagree more with Justin's advice to tell Tacky Man he was tacky. What good does that do? It won't teach him anything because he'll be defensive and not in the right time or place. So basically, it just makes Justin feel righteous. Katy's advice is much better and kinder.
Well, look, I think if this viewer says that it would not teach him anything, and I disagree. I think that in order to teach him something, you have to tell him what the situation was. Now, you can be kind in doing that, and maybe this viewer didn't like my advice on how to do that. But I do feel like generally in my life, and I feel like, and in many ways, it's the way I get through the day is by, not speaking my mind. That sounds more aggressive than it is, but by trying to say what I need to say so that it's said.
Right. And I think what's interesting, and this really moves into a great kind of listener question that they sent in and they like our advice, is that, yes, it might be what needs to be said, but is that person listening? And how do we get them into the space where they are open to that? And so this is a scenario. I have an experience similar to Tacky Man. What advice would y'all give? I was asked to introduce a former colleague to a connection on LinkedIn because former colleague is looking for a new job. Former colleague is easily the most difficult person I have ever worked with in my 20 plus year career. I wasn't sure how to handle and was given advice just to delete his email and not respond. I always respond to emails. But in this case, I followed that advice and I just deleted the email with no response. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you and I are going to disagree on this. I mean, this is a perfect example of what we were just talking about. I feel like in my own life, I have more regrets over not saying something than I do when I say something. Now, I have plenty of regrets when I say something. I think we all know that on this podcast already. But I think as I get older, I'm trying to couch them more. So like in a situation like that, I'd probably say something like, I don't think I'm the best person to do this for you, but I wish you the best. Like, I think it's direct, it's honest, honestly. And I think that brings up another thing. When I say no to something, and that happens, I'm sure in your life you do too, I always in my head think I will not lie about this, but I can, if I have an appointment, well, maybe my appointment's with my couch, but I try and be honest saying I have another appointment. So Go ahead.
And Justin, I have to say that is much more lovely than I expected from you. I thought it was going to be more that I'm not going to, put my reputation on the line for you. Can you recall all of the times that it was difficult? I think what's interesting here is this is someone who doesn't realize they're asking a really big ask. And this is someone who does not want to tarnish their reputation by introducing someone who is a highly difficult colleague. Mm-hmm. But she feels incredibly uncomfortable for ghosting this person, like deleting their email. I think yours is a good way. I think possibly two other ways that she could respond, but not be so direct and open up this kind of can of whoop ass, is that what she could write and say, thank you for your email. Right now, I'm being kind of overwhelmed by these requests due to the current market and what's happening. We live in DC, so you can understand kind of what's happening with the federal government. And so at this point, I'm kind of maxed out on connections, but I wish you the best of luck. Mm-hmm. I think that's one way to respond. I think another way to respond is when anyone asks me, particularly someone who is not a best friend or a staff member that I have closely supervised and given reviews for, I have a lot of people, I have a lot of LinkedIn connections, and kind of due to my career, I have a lot of people who reach out and say, will you connect me with this person?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best kind of work etiquette is to always reach out to the person who you're going to be connecting them to and say, listen, I have this connection. Here is their profile. I know you're crazy busy. We're up on the holiday season, this, and this. Would you be open to doing this?
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And what they could also do is to say, I want to give you some feedback, blah, 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 because this person might try to contact this person anyway and say, we know X person in common, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, just deleting the email doesn't necessarily, stop this possible communication. You could then get a no from that person and write back and say, it was great to hear from you. I checked in with this person, and right now they're pretty overwhelmed. And they don't have the bandwidth to meet with you, but best of luck.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are two possible options of making yourself feel better about being responsive, but also not putting your friend or your reputation in jeopardy.
I agree. I think the only thing I would take on with that is the first one the first advice you gave where you said, I'm overwhelmed with emails, is if that's based in truth, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But I think as a growing experience, at least for me, like even when, like I remember when I was working in TV and I would be in a cubicle and someone would ask up in the air to everyone in the area, like, does anyone know what time XYZ is? In my head, I knew what time was. Or if they'd asked, if person A asked person B, do you know what time this event is? In my head, if I knew what time it is, I would not answer because they did not ask me specifically. And I didn't. So I really feel like you think that's funny?
I just think that's so weird. I mean, I think it's just a different orientation to helping. I mean,
I guess I'm giving it not on like what time is it, but I try and live in my own lane. But where I was going with that in your advice piece is I also try and root anything I tell someone in the truth. And so, yes, to be as least harmful as I can. And this week I'm firing a real estate client because they want a price for their house that the market is not giving, and they're not listening. And I've gone through it enough. And when I wrote them, I said, basically I don't have confidence I could sell at that price. You deserve a realtor who has that confidence. It was an aggressive, straightforward approach, but I think that the best advice is the ones that are rooted in truth, that are straightforward, but are hard to say also.
Yeah. And I think this is something that is a personal relationship. That is someone who could come back and ask additional information. I think this is more of a superficial relationship.
Sure,
and I think
sure.
It is okay to ground in truth, but it doesn't have to be necessarily the Bible beating, God honest, swear on your mother's life kind of truth. I don't think that's necessary for some of these kind of social interactions.
What's interesting about as we do more of these podcasts, this seems to be a consistent theme as to how you approach just hard discussions. And maybe we need a podcast just on that, because I think, have you noticed that that's been a theme over a lot of things we've talked about?
Well, and it's interesting. I have in casual conversations, particularly from friends who listen to our show, or like, could we eventually talk about something like, people who have different political leanings,
Mm-hmm.
and how are they getting along? Or even I've had people say, how do you just approach, and we wouldn't make a comment on either, but, Israel, Palestine, like, how do you have a constructive
Mm-hmm.
conversation around these things when you disagree?
And is it possible?
Those are very difficult conversations. So yeah, that's definitely something we can do in the future.
All right. Well, that's this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. We appreciate you all listening and watching. For those of you on YouTube, of course, if you have emails or other questions or comments, I know you have comments, but if you have questions on advice in your daily life, please email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, we'll see you back here next week on Wrong Way Forward.
All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Remember, the only thing worse than taking bad advice is giving it.
If you've liked what you've heard, like, subscribe, or follow us wherever you stream podcasts. And if you've got a topic or need some advice we'll probably regret giving, email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward.